There is an interesting drop in sales for the PS5 consoles as of late, but the reason why that is might surprise you. So, for the first half of 2024, sales of PS5 are down 16% year-over-year. While this may sound like cause for concern, it's worth noting it's still comfortably the region's best-selling console, and it's competing with a particularly fruitful period. In the early months of 2023, Sony widely promoted the platform's availability after years of stock shortages. With that crucial context, some degree of decline was to be expected. For me, all this is a sign that people know that the PS5 Pro is coming out. So I know that people are holding back. Once the PS5 Pro comes out, the sales will skyrocket again. It should be noted that, in comparison, the aging Nintendo Switch slipped 32% year-over-year, while the Xbox Series, which is having a particularly tough time, declined an eye-watering 37%. I mean, I'm not hating on Xbox, but I think Microsoft has given up on console sales long time ago. They are literally telling fans there is no point in buying the consoles. You can play all Xbox games on your Amazon Fire Stick, granted it's cloud gaming. And do think that's kind of cool. And then you got Xbox Game Pass on PCs. There is literally no urgency in buying an Xbox console. Furthermore, we know about the issue with Black Myth Wukong optimization on Xbox Series S. The game cannot function on that console. The devs said it's impossible to make it work. So for the first time, Phil Spencer allowed them to create a completely separate version of the game just for the Series S. I really think that console held this generation back, and we are really starting to see the signs. Don't get me wrong, I think it's cool to have a budget-friendly console like this, but the rules Phil set in place that all games need to run on the X like on the S really limited devs when developing a game. And because sales are so down, I think devs are slowly moving away from the console. Now I know that some of you are gonna come at me with, Xbox had the best summer game fest, blew Sony out of the water. Guys, please, chill. All those games are coming to PS5 anyway. Or if they don't, I can play it on my $50 Amazon Fire Stick. Despite the slip in hardware sales, software continues to perform reasonably. Only 2 titles actually released in 2024 managed to make the top 10 for the first 6 months of year. Helldivers 2 and The Last of Us 2 Remastered have always the PlayStation IPs in the top. Interesting, right? Here's the full lineup of bestsellers in Europe for the year thus far. Helldivers 2, Grand Theft Auto 5, Hogwarts Legacy, Red Dead Redemption 2, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 3, Fallout 4, It Takes Two, Rainbow Six, Siege, The Last of Us 2 Remastered. What do you make of the console market at the moment? Is the industry crying out for GTA 6 and the new Nintendo Switch? And is PS5's position comfortable or concerning? I don't think Sony is comfortable. As you know from my past videos is that Sony is cooking right now, and the meal will be delicious. September, October will be huge for PS5 owners. And I think 2025 is going to be one of the biggest years for Sony. Let's talk PS Plus. Those subscribed to PS Plus Extra and PS Plus Premium now have access to a selection of 13 more PS5 and PS4 titles. Sony has dropped the latest monthly additions to its game catalog and lineup of retro classics, meaning you can download or stream them right now. Currently, I'm playing Remnant 2. It's a pretty pleasant surprise I didn't expect. Remnant 2 is an action RPG with third-person shooter mechanics, much like its predecessor, Remnant, From the Ashes. The game emphasizes cooperative play, allowing up to 3 players to team up and tackle the challenges together. It's set in a post-apocalyptic world with a mix of sci-fi and fantasy elements. The gameplay involves exploring various procedurally generated environments, battling a variety of enemies, and collecting loot to upgrade your character and equipment. Generally positive reviews from both critics and players. It was praised for its engaging gameplay, challenging combat, and the depth of its co-op experience. The game's world building and visual design also garnered positive feedback. Remnant 2 shines in its cooperative play, encouraging teamwork and strategy among players. Each playthrough can feel different thanks to procedurally generated levels, enemy spawns, and loot. The mix of shooting and melee combat, combined with various character classes and abilities, adds an interesting twist to the gameplay, which I think it's pretty cool. Of course, it's not perfect. Some players might find the game's difficulty too punishing, especially when playing solo. While the game has interesting lore, some players felt the story was not as engaging or well-developed. New players might find the learning curve steep, particularly in understanding the game's mechanics and systems. But hey, the game is free. It's worth trying it out in my opinion. You might be playing for few days. Who knows, it might become your favorite game. Everyone's got their tastes. Square Enix's Final Fantasy XVI has reached one of its lowest price ever, as part of a new sale that has today gone live. A little more than a year ago, the latest mainline Final Fantasy entry was released on PlayStation 5. Since that time, the game has steadily continued to drop in price thanks to new sales that have come about from Square Enix. Now, a new offer has brought the action RPG to a new low and should be taken advantage of by those who have been looking to pick it up. As of this moment, Final Fantasy XVI is now being sold for only $29.99. This represents a 40% discount from the game's recent price, which has largely continued to hover around $49.99. By all accounts, Final Fantasy XVI has been incredibly well received by both critics and players. Currently, the game boasts an impressive 87/100 aggregate review score on Metacritic, making it one of the best-reviewed titles of 2024. As a result, FF16 clearly isn't being discounted because of its quality, which makes this offer one that is even more enticing to those who have been on the fence when it comes to buying it. South Korean Stellar Blade developer ShiftUp has finalized its IPO, which turned out to be highly successful. As reported by Bloomberg, ShiftUp raised $320 million, 435 billion won, the local currency, the largest amount a gaming firm gathered during an IPO in almost 3 years. Back then, Krafton, maker of PUBG, raised $3.8 billion in its IPO. It's also the largest IPO in South Korea across all sectors since HD Hyundai Marine Solution in May. Lee Ji-yoon, analyst at Daishin Securities Company, reckoned there would be ample space for the stock to rise following the IPO. He was right. ShiftUp ended the day with a market capitalization of around $3 billion, which is roughly similar to Koei Tecmo from Japan. Koei Tecmo, however, is a company with roots that date back to many decades ago, having released many notable franchises like Atelier, Dead or Alive, Dynasty Warriors, Fatal Frame, Monster Rancher, Ninja Gaiden, Neo, Nobunaga's Ambition, One Piece, Pirate Warriors, Rise of the Ronin, and Romance of the Three Kingdoms, among others. ShiftUp is already looking into a PC port of Stellar Blade and a sequel. Additionally, they have been hiring for a new AAA urban sci-fi action RPG project made with Epic's Unreal Engine. Inevitably, though, this game will take a few years to materialize on the market. In a way, ShiftUp's meteoric rise in market capitalization brings back to mind CD Projekt Red, which at one point was the largest video game company in Europe by market cap, with $8.1 billion, on the heels of the Witcher trilogy and the third installment in particular. Helldivers 2 hit an all-time low concurrent player count on Steam, dropping to just below 13,000 players in early July 2024. While its community remains fairly substantial, many Helldivers 2 players appear to have moved on from the game, at least for the time being. Arrowhead Game Studios' latest title was released for the PS5 and PC on February 8th. The PlayStation-published live service shooter debuted to widespread fan adoration and critical acclaim, quickly becoming a hit across all supported platforms. According to the latest commercial update from Sony, Helldivers 2 sold over 12 million copies as of March 31st. But a significant chunk of that player base appears to have moved on by now, at least as far as the PC crowd is concerned. That's according to some new data scrapped by SteamDB, which reveals that Helldivers 2 had recently dropped to just 12,995 concurrent Steam players. The all-time low count was recorded on Tuesday, July 9th. During its busiest hours of the day, the co-op shooter still peaks at roughly 35,000 players. Generally speaking, it is completely normal for games to lose steam shortly following their release. But while those trends are generally unavoidable for single-player experiences, live service games try their best to mitigate them, not least because they essentially live and die by the size and health of their player communities. Helldivers 2 does have one major advantage in this respect over many of its rivals, as it launched as a $40 product rather than a free-to-play offering. Given its immense launch sales, Arrowhead should be well-positioned to keep supporting Helldivers 2 with new content updates in the foreseeable future, even if none of them manage to reinvigorate the game's player count.